Welcome back to Life Mastery Unleashed, where I'm going to help you unlock your full potential by being raw, truthful, and transparent. I'm Khamis. Today we're talking about how the strong man gets hit at home. This one is different. I want you to lean into this. This is not about business. This is not about money. This is not about your production. This is about what happens when a man who is winning everywhere else walks into his house and it feels like he is losing. And I know exactly what that feels like because I've been living it. This is a different kind of pressure that comes with that. It's not loud. It is not visible to the outside world. Nobody sees it, but you feel it. You feel it when you're driving home. You feel it when everything gets quiet and your mind starts going, replaying conversations, replaying tone, replaying moments, trying to make sense of it, trying to figure it out. What is actually going on here? What are we doing? Why does it feel like no matter what I do, it is just not landing? And here's the part that most men will never say out loud. It bothers you more than you want to admit because you are not soft. You are not emotional in the way people think. You are built to handle pressure. You thrive in pressure. You solve problems. That is who you are. So when something in your life feels like you cannot solve it, that hits different. It creates a different kind of tension. And that tension builds and builds and builds until you start carrying it with you into your work, into your focus, into your energy. And you try to compartmentalize it. You try to say, I'll deal with it later. I'll just focus on what I need to do right now. But it doesn't work like that because it is always there, sitting in the background, draining you. And I started noticing that in myself. I started noticing I was shorter, less patient, more distracted, not as present. And I heard myself ask a hard question. What is actually going on? Not out there, in here. Because it is always easy to look outward. It is easy to say, well, if this was different, or if she did this, or if this situation changed, everything would be fine. That is easy. That is also weak because it gives you no control. And I had to catch myself in that because I could feel it. I could feel myself building a case in my own head, replaying things, and slowly convincing myself that I was right, that I was justified, that I was the one dealing with something unfair. And that is dangerous. Because once you lock into that, you stop leading, you stop reacting, and you show up in ways you don't even realize. It shows up in your tone, it shows up in your energy, it shows up in the way you walk into the house. And I'll tell you exactly what that looks like. You're driving home, you're already in the conversation. Before you even get there, you're already thinking about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, what point you're going to make, and what you think you're preparing, but you're not. You're loading up. You're getting ready for a fight that hasn't even happened yet. And you walk in like that, you're not walking in as a leader. You're walking in as a reactor. And those are two completely different energies. I had to see that in myself because I would walk in and I would say things that felt logical, felt fair, felt justified. Things like, what are we doing? Why does everything turn into this? Why does it feel like nothing I do is enough? And in my mind, I'm just asking questions. I'm just trying to understand. But that's not how it lands. It lands like pressure. It lands like an attack. It puts the other person on defense immediately. And now you're in it. Now it escalates. Now it becomes something bigger than it needed to be. And you sit there thinking, how did this turn into this? I was just trying to talk. I was just trying to communicate. No, I was trying to win. And that was the shift I had to make. I had to stop asking, how do I win this moment? And start asking, how do I lead this moment? Because those are not the same thing. Winning is about me. Leading is about the outcome. Winning is about being right. Leading is about being effective. And effectiveness is what actually moves things forward, not being right. You can be right and still destroy connection. You can be right and still create distance. You can be right and still lose. And that's a hard truth, especially for guys like us, because we're used to being right. We're used to solving problems. We're used to figuring things out. So when something doesn't respond to logic, it frustrates us. But that's where growth is, because this is not a logic problem. This is a leadership problem. And leadership here looks different. It's not loud. It's not forceful. It's controlled. It's calm. It's intentional. And it requires something most men don't practice: emotional discipline. Let me be clear. Emotional discipline is not suppressing how you feel. It's not pretending you're fine. It's not avoiding the conversation. That's weakness. Emotional discipline is feeling everything. It's still choosing how to respond. That's strength. That's control. That's leadership. And I had to start building that in real time, not after the fact, not once things cooled down, in the moment. When I felt it building in my chest, when I felt that urge to speak, when I felt that pressure rising, I started forcing a pause. And that pause is where everything changed. Because in that pause, you create space between what you feel and what you do. And most men don't have that space. They go straight from feeling to reacting. And that gap right there, that missing space, is where all the damage happens. So I had to train that. Let me be clear. You don't train that by just thinking about it. You train that with structure. That's exactly why I built OneTheDay.com, because most people are just reacting to their days. They wake up, they go through it, they deal with whatever comes at them, and then they wonder why they have no control in moments like this. At One the Day, you're forced to slow down. You're forced to think. You're forced to decide who you're going to be that day. 5 power tasks, that's it. But those 5 start building discipline in your decisions. And when you start winning your decisions during the day, you start winning your reactions at night. That's the connection most people miss. I started slowing things down. I started asking myself in those moments, what outcome do I actually want here? Not what do I want to say, not what do I feel. What outcome do I want? Do I want connection? Do I want understanding? Do I want peace? Or do I just want to get this off my chest? Because those are very different things. And most men choose the second. They choose emotional relief. And emotional relief feels good for a second, but it creates long-term damage. And I started seeing that pattern in my own life, clear as day. Moments where I said something just to release pressure and it created more distance. Moments where I pushed a point and it made things worse. And I had to own that fully. No excuses, no justification, just ownership. Because ownership is where your power is. And that's where I want to take this next. Because once you actually see your role in it, once you stop blaming and start owning, that's where you can finally start to lead it differently. And this is where it gets real. Because once you take ownership, you lose the excuse. You lose the ability to say, well, if this was different, I'd be fine. Now it's on you. Now it's, how do I show up better? How do I lead better? How do I control myself when everything in me wants to react? And that is where most men tap out, because it's easier to point out what's wrong than it is to fix what's in you. But if you're listening to this, you're not most men. You're the guy people look at and say, he's different. So now you've got to live like that. Not just in business, at home, where it actually matters most. So let's break this down in real time. I want you to picture this. You're driving home, you feel it, that tightness in your chest. Your thoughts are moving fast, you're replaying things, you're already building your case. Stop right there. That's the first moment that matters. Not when you walk in the door, right there in the car. Because that's where the frame is set. That's where you decide, am I walking in a loaded gun, or am I walking in grounded and peaceful? And this is where I had to start doing something different. I stopped letting my thoughts run wild, and I started talking to myself. Direct, clear, like a leader. I would literally say, slow down. You're not walking in to win, you're walking in to lead. That one sentence changed everything, because now I'm intentional. Now I'm aware. Now I'm not just reacting to my thoughts, I'm directing them. And that's step one. You have to lead yourself before you can lead anything else. So now you walk in. And instead of carrying that energy with you, you check it. You slow your breathing. You lower your tone. You control your body language, because all of that communicates before you even speak. And this is where most guys miss it. They think it's about the words. It's not. It's about the energy of the words. You can say the right words with wrong energy, and it lands wrong. Every time. So you walk in controlled, not fake, not forced, controlled, grounded. And then the moment comes, the moment where you would normally react, where you would normally say something like, here we go again, or why is this happening, or what are we even doing here? And instead you pause and you choose something different. You say, help me understand what you're feeling right now. Simple but powerful, because now you're not attacking, you're inviting, you're creating space, you're showing leadership. And here's what's going to happen. First, it might feel awkward. It might feel like you're holding back. It might even feel like you're losing ground. You're not. You're building control. You're building discipline. You're building a new pattern. And patterns take repetition. You don't fix this in one conversation. You build it over time through consistency, through showing up the same way over and over again. And that's how trust is built. That's how stability is built. That's how leadership is proven, not once, repeatedly. And this is where faith comes in deeper for me, because there are moments where I still feel it, where I still want to react, where I still want to say what's on my mind immediately. And I have to check myself. And I have to remind myself, you are not doing this alone. God is with you in this moment. He is calling you to be different, to be patient, to be slow to speak, to be quick to listen. And I lean into that. I lean into that calling, because my natural instinct is not always my best response. And that's true for all of us. So now it becomes a discipline, not just mentality, but spiritually. You start asking yourself, am I responding in a way that reflects who I'm called to be? Or am I just reacting based on how I feel? Because those are not the same thing. And when you start aligning your actions with that, you start becoming more grounded, more stable, more consistent. That changes the entire dynamic. Now let's go deeper, because this isn't just about one conversation. This is about identity. Every time you pause instead of react, you're casting a vote. Every time you choose control over emotion, you're casting a vote. Every time you lead instead of defend, you're casting a vote for the man you are becoming. And that compounds, that builds, that turns into something real. Because now you're not just talking about being disciplined, you're living it. And in the hardest place to live it, at home, where there's no audience, where there's no applause and there's no recognition, just you and how you show up. That's the real test. Anybody can be disciplined when people are watching. Real discipline shows up when nobody is watching, when it's just you and the moment. And this is where your family feels it. Even if they can't explain it, they feel the difference. They feel the stability. They feel the consistency. They feel the leadership. And that creates something powerful. It creates safety, creates trust, it creates connection. And that's what you're building, not perfection, consistency. Let me be clear, this doesn't mean you don't speak your truth. This doesn't mean you suppress everything and suck it down. This doesn't mean you avoid hard conversations. It means you choose the right time, the right tone, the right approach. You don't react in the heat. You lead with intention. That's the difference. And when you start doing that, you start seeing things differently. You start realizing not everything needs to be addressed immediately. Not everything needs a reaction. Some things need space. Some things need patience. Some things need time. And that's where wisdom comes in, knowing the difference. And that's something you build through discipline, through awareness, through faith. So here's what I want you to do. For the next 7 days, you commit to this. No reaction, only responses. You feel it. You pause, you think, you choose. Every single time. You slow down your tone, you control your energy, you ask better questions. You listen more than you speak, and you lead every moment. Not perfectly, but intentionally. And you watch what happens. You watch how things shift. You watch how your energy changes. You watch how your presence changes. Because now you're not just reacting to life, you're leading it. And that's what separates you. Not your income, not your status, not your success, not your ability to lead. When it hurts, when it's uncomfortable, when everything in you wants to go the other way, that's the man you're becoming. That's the level you're stepping into. And this is what it really comes down to. This is not being perfect. This is not about getting it right every single time. This is about being aware in the moments that actually matter. Because most of life is not decided in the big moments, it's decided in the small ones, small little cuts, the conversations, the tone, the reactions, the pauses, the decisions you make when nobody is watching, where there is no audience, when there is no applause, just you, and how you choose to show up. That's where life is built or broken. And most men never slow down long enough to see that. They think it's about the big wins, the big deals, the big moves, but it's not. It's about the daily discipline of how you carry yourself, especially when it's hard, especially when it hurts, especially when you feel like you're not being understood, because that is when your real character shows up. Not when things are easy, not when everything is going your way, when you're under pressure, when you're frustrated, and you feel that tension building inside of you. That's the moment. That's the test. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can react or you can lead. You can speak out of emotion or you can respond with discipline. You can try to win the moment or you can build something that actually lasts. And that choice happens faster than you realize. It happens in seconds, sometimes less. And if you're not intentional, if you're not aware, you'll miss it. You'll go straight into reaction. And then you'll sit there later thinking about what you should have said, thinking about how it could have gone differently, thinking about how you wish you handled it. But by then, the moment is gone. And moments don't come back. That's why this matters so much, because every one of those moments is a vote. A vote for the man you're becoming. A vote for the husband you are becoming. A vote for the father you are becoming. A vote for the leader you are becoming. And those votes add up. They compound. They turn into patterns. And those patterns turn into your life. So when you start slowing down, when you start becoming aware, when you start choosing discipline over emotion, you start changing the pattern. You start shifting the direction, not overnight, but over time. That's how real change happens, quietly, consistently, through repetition, through intention, through choosing the harder response over and over again. I'll be honest with you, this is not easy. There are still moments where I feel it, where I want to react, where I want to say what's on my mind immediately, where I feel justified, where I feel like I'm right. And I check myself. I slow down. I have to remind myself, being right is not the goal. Leading is the goal. Connection is the goal. Building something strong is the goal. And that requires something different. That requires discipline. It requires humility. It requires control. And for me, that's when God comes in. Because on my own, left to my own instincts, I will react. I will defend. And I will let my pride take over. But I'm not called to live like that. I'm called to be better than that. To be slower to speak, to be quicker to listen, to be grounded, to be patient, to lead with strength, but also with control. And that's not weakness, that's real power. Because real power is not how loud you are. It's not how dominant you are. It's how controlled you are. It's how grounded you are. When everything inside of you wants to go the other direction, that's the man you're becoming. That's the level you're stepping into. Not just a man who wins in business, but a man who leads in every area of his life. A man who brings stability. A man who brings consistency. A man who brings presence. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Not the deal, not the money, not the recognition. It's what you build at home. In the environment you create. It's the way you show up for the people who matter most. And if you can master that, if you can discipline yourself in those moments, if you can slow down and lead instead of react, you'll separate yourself in a way most men never will. Because most men never get this far. Most men never look at themselves like this. Most men stay stuck in reaction. You're not doing that. You're stepping into something higher, something stronger, something more intentional. And it starts right here in the next moment. Not tomorrow, not next week, it's right now. That's where it begins. Fellas, in short, we want perfect lives. We want recognition for the sacrifice that we created. We want to feel like men. You need to do what you do because that is who you are and not because that is what you want people to tell you who you are. Get out there, be stoic. As the legendary Epictetus says, want only what's within your control. Don't chase outcomes, don't chase approval, don't chase comfort. Instead, want to be disciplined, want to execute, want to do your job well. And get out there and outgrind, outwork, out-hustle everyone.